Hi, I'm Ibrahim Morales. I'm a 17-year-old student from Tech Millennium, and I'm going to explain to you the code word for my homework 10 of contemporary word. First of all, we have to see that the Cold War was called this way because there was never a direct confrontation between the US and Soviet Union, even though there were there were wars that happened during this period between both sides, capitalism and socialism, where both countries tried to use their influence to demonstrate what happened, that their ideological and economical system was better. Some examples of these little wars were the Vietnam War, the Korean War, the Cuban independence, and many others. Um, this conflict, even though there wasn't a direct confrontation, there was always fear of a nuclear disaster because both countries, Russia, the Soviet Union, and the US, had nuclear missiles near the other country to attack because Cuba became a communist, socialist country. They were allied with the Soviet Union and they had missiles, but what many people doesn't know is that the US had missiles in what it's known in many little capitalist countries in Europe. Um, Here we can say that there were many advantages that were made during this period of time because of this conflict. For example, the space race that brought us many advantages in science. We had the first man in space, Yuri Gagarin, and the first man in the moon, which was Neil Armstrong from both countries. Yuri from the Soviet Union and Neil from the United States, respectively. So we can say that both ideologies has advantages and disadvantages. Neither of both are perfect. We can describe them both as capitalism. It's an economical system where everyone can theoretically change their opportunities in order to win the equivalent of their effort or the value of their works or even the products they sell. So no one lives in inequality because everyone lives towards the value of their work, which sometimes is unfair because hard physical works are very low paid in this economical system, for example. But it's understandable that some other works like science are well paid instead. So basically, the effort you made during your preparation, your education, and stuff will lead you to a better life quality. The other side of the coin, it's the communism that never actually existed because it's something utopic. It's something that Karl Marx, a German thinker, I will leave it like that because I don't remember the word I am searching for. Thought about society as a total equality where it doesn't matter which is your job, you will get an equal pay to the others in order you give the same opportunity for society. So everyone has to work the same amount of hours and stuff, and they get the same pay. This is great, but it so fantastic that it has never existed. Instead, we had socialism that it's a current that it's supposed to be like the process to get to communism, but there are many problems that were thought by the philosopher, it was a word, Karl Marx. For example, someone has to work administrating the resources so they have better use, and that's it. So when you are administrating resources in a socialist uh, society where you are supposed to have the same money as everyone, well, you have the power to take a bit more for yourself. There won't be that equality. And when there's hunger, absolutely everyone gets hunger. And there's not an actual motivation for people to improve society. For example, in capitalism, we have money. People like Elon Musk has improved this world with that motivation, becoming rich, becoming better, and then you can start thinking as a philosopher for the rest of the world because you already have a different perspective of the rest of the world and a perspective of success. So in socialism, this doesn't exist. So yeah, basically things like electric cars, the burn of EIs, virtual intelligence, artificial intelligence, wouldn't exist. Probably we will still be using more bad ways of producing energy, like for example nuclear energy or the use of petroleum. But yeah, we're starting to leave those things on the past because many people that have the motivation of becoming richer help the this world decided to improve technology in order to make the solar energy, the electric energy, the hydraulic energy, and the other ways of biofuel and the other ways of producing energy more available for the society and more rentable. My personal opinions are that socialism is better death. I personally agree with capitalism because, as I already said, it gives a real motivation to people to improve what the human race is and to start thinking further. When socialism lets you in a very comfy state of life, that doesn't actually lead you to improve others' life. So yeah, that's are my personal thoughts, and thanks for hearing me. Oh, I was forgetting something. The origins of this conflict. The origins of the first socialist proclaimed country was Russia in 1917 after the end of the Bolsheviks revolution and the murder of the Tsar king of Russia back then, the murder of him and his family. So yeah, and Russia was led by many mandatories. Well, the most known ones were Lenin, which was actually the leader of the Bolsheviks revolution and the first leader of this new country, the first socialist country in the world. We had Stalin, which actually led this country to victory during Second World War, even if this country was suffering from a lack of resources, money, and people. And Mikhail Gorbachev, who ended this conflict out. Other part of the origins of this was the end of the Second World War, which led to the split of Germany in half, in the Federal Republic of Germany and the Democratic Republic of Germany, which were divided by Berlin in a wall, with a wall, and the half of it was communist and the half of it was capitalist. So yeah, um, one of the greatest moments of this conflict was when the socialism ended, mostly because there are countries that are still socialist. The end of the Soviet Union and the fall of the Berlin Wall. That meant unification of the world that is still happening and that is becoming greater with the use of the internet and the new technologies. This is great for our world, for our society, and for our philosophies. So, those are my personal thoughts for socialism and for capitalism. I think that everyone should start their lives in equal in, in equal opportunities because some people, as me, are very lucky of living a great life, but some people cannot reach a good way of living during their lifetime, even if they work forever. But and sometimes even if you work hard and you invest your money and you do things you are supposed to, no one assures you that you will succeed, and problems can reach you. More problems than the ones that actually existed before this this way of thinking was born. But yeah, those are my personal thoughts for both sides. And these thanks for hearing me. Now I can end this work successfully, and I thank you for your attention. For this part of the homework, I'm gonna introduce you to my brother Israel. He has a great knowledge about this topic and other topics related to war and politics. First of all, what are your thoughts about both sides, capitalism and communism?
Well, I think both sides sucks. When it comes to talking about who deserves the power and stuff, well, I think both suck. Um, there's no other way to describe them, but I'm glad that the world didn't fall into communism. Since, well, if we check all the stuff that happened post World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Afghan War, what else? The fall of the Berlin Wall, all these like uh, terrorist groups that grew up around Europe and all the how's it called, like all the rebel groups that emerged from the North African from North Africa. Well, I don't know what to say. I'm just kind of glad that the capitalism won at the end, but of course it brought a lot of bad consequences to the world. I guess it. I guess if the world had fallen into communism, would be even worse, though. But yeah, I believe that both ideological how's it called? Ideological theories suck.
Okay. Mm. Second question: what do you think was the biggest menace each side has to face in the Cold War, even though it wasn't an actual war between the U.S. and the communists?
And the Soviet Union,
Yeah.
not only the communists.
Yeah.
All right. So when it comes to that, of course, the Soviet Union was the second biggest army in the world, and now Russia is the second biggest army in the world, and of course, always the first one When it comes to men, it's gonna be the United States, if I remember correctly. But of course, the Russians at that time they had I don't know, the T-72, the how is it called? All these crazy helicopters. The invention of the AK-47, which nowadays it's the rifle which has more deaths in the world. Um, or the invention of the M16A2 and all the invention, of course, of the flag jacket by the USA. You know, all the stuff that used to avoid fragmentation from communist grenades against the American and other capitalist troops around the globe. But yeah, putting aside the weaponry that the Russians or the Americans had, I would say, of course, the biggest threat was, as everybody knows, the nuclear threat and constant fear of one of the, and of course, the constant fear of a red menace all over the globe, and starvation, of course, and espionage were also two good factors to talk about.
What are your personal opinions about the space race between the US and the
And the
Soviet
Soviet
Union?
Union. Of course. I don't think it was necessary at all. I think it was just a thing that both sides just started to argue to see which one was the best in those type of aspects. But well, um, it was pretty interesting how Russia will send the first cosmonaut to space and return safely. Of course, you don't hear a lot of the background story that actually like 3 or 4 cosmonauts died before Yuri Gagarin. Um, and well, of course, the NASA also has their own secrets, but they're more they're more deep when it comes to that. But yeah, I mean, I think it was a waste of money, but it was kind of like a good way for the Americans to make fun of or mock of in front of Russians or the rest of the communist countries around the world.
Okay, that's an acceptable opinion. And I wanna add one more question to all of this. What do you think has been a succeed or a benefit of the end of the Cold War?
Well, of course, the end of well, almost the end of the communism. I believe that it's not a good way to think, since of course it's an top it's like an imaginary thing, you know. Um, Nobody can be equal, as you know. And of course, somebody needs to administrate all those resources. And that person, which is going to administrate those resources, at the end of the day, is going to take a little bit more for himself. There's no way to describe or say anything else. I'm glad that most of communist countries have already dissolved. Of course, there's just a couple of them left. Um, so yeah, I mean, of course, I'm not saying that communism is like really super bad. Of course, I think they have some small like pros, but yeah, they have more cons when you compare it to capitalism. Of course, capitalism it's unfair, and you need to work pretty much for the rest of your life to how can I say like
Live a good life.
yeah to have like a decent or good life. Something that quote unquote in communism doesn't happen. Well, or at least from my point of view. But of course, it's not gonna be the same life quality. So yeah, I'm glad that communism ended. Well, almost ended around the globe. It's just Cuba, China, and other African and European countries that they're just like really small when it comes to socialism. Of course, they're still a little bit getting support from Russia because they are already like in a bond, you know. Like, of course, North Korea is still receiving new AKs. Same deal with China. They're trading guns and ammunition all the time. Um, but yeah, after all, I think it was a good idea. The destruction of the Berlin Wall. I think it was an amazing idea. The fact that the USSR opened to the world and finally decided to trade with other countries. Of course, this brought a lot of controversial stuff in Russia, such as terrorist attacks in schools and in a theater. But that's just some consequences when, well, of course, you are trying to invade Crimea and taking over Ukraine again, right? So, yeah, I'm glad that communism almost is dissolved, but yeah, it's like a kind of like a hard thing to talk about because yeah, I sometimes disagree in so many stuff when you're talking about capitalism.
Yeah, no one is fully correct. Everyone is partially correct. And you
Yeah,
have to take the best from everything.
yeah, and of course the USA committed a lot of atrocities during the Cold War. I mean, both sides, the Russians and the USA, did a lot of pretty ugly stuff. Like, of course, as you know, the CIA founded the Al Qaeda, even though they always deny it. Russia, what they did, they of course tried to occupy Afghanistan. They both sides did a lot of messed up things, and I don't know whatever did all that stuff and all the espionage and all the torturing and killing that happened in South America and Central America was of course a nightmare. Um, so yeah, I would say that it's good that the Cold War has finally ended, and we no longer have to think into only like we're part of a communist party or we're part of or we are side with the capitalist guys. So yeah, I'm glad that that war just ended up with the fall of the Soviet Union.
Okay, thanks for your participation, Israel. It was glad to talk to you, and just for letting you know, I'll use this for my homework. Are you okay with it?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.